Hitchcock was very smart in that he kept everything limited to that location. So it was a one set film.
Mm,
I think if he had filmed a scene outside, or maybe as an introduction or something, and then brought it to, this set, with this building, it would have felt really jarring
mm.
and a little strange. But just the fact that from beginning to end, it takes place on this set, it just makes it feel like reality. Like it's like just this, your own little reality you're watching of this one set.
This is Dr. Andrew Rimby. Thanks for joining us here in the Ivory Tower Boiler Room. If you don't know, you can get all of our episodes ad-free on Patreon, patreon.com/Ivory Tower Boiler Room. All of Mary's true crime episodes ad-free, video episodes ad-free from the ITBR interviews. Also, follow us on Instagram, please, Ivory Tower Boiler Room. I like to put a lot of exciting arts and culture clips from the podcast, TV shows, films that we've discussed. TikTok is Dr. Andrew Rimby. Long story, the Ivory Tower Boiler Room one got taken off by TikTok because it was too salacious and scandalous, in my opinion. But I might be just having an Oscar Wilde complex there, thinking, that I was causing such a sensation on TikTok. So please rate us on Apple. It really, really helps. Review us. If you're on Spotify, you can rate us there too. YouTube, please follow our YouTube channel. Please like the video, share it with your friends, your community. The only way that I can keep giving you all free, exciting podcast episodes is because of the reach of the podcast. So rating us, reviewing us, it really, really does help. Also, shout out to Sean, our intern, who, if you see the cover art, you see the edits of the podcast, that's all Sean. So amazing work by Sean. So I hope you all enjoy this episode. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Ivory Tower Boiler Room. It's Dr. Andrew Rimby, joined here with a very exciting, just in time for gothic themed suspense thrillers, all things psychological. I just can't wait to dig into Alfred Hitchcock, who I'm fascinated with, but I don't know a lot of information about. So I love being with a Hitchcock expert in the room here, in the Zoom room. So the author I'm joined with, her name is Jennifer O'Callaghan. She just came out with a new book, her debut book. So Rear Window, the making of a Hitchcock masterpiece in the Hollywood Golden Age. So beautifully, designed with all the different vantage points that our protagonist sees from his window. Jennifer O'Callaghan is a freelance writer and journalist. She's worked as a reporter for Metro News, the Sundance Channel, Shaw TV, CKUA Radio, and news, entertainment, and lifestyle beats. She's appeared as a red carpet reporter for the entertainment website MyBroadway.com and as a host on Parade Town USA on New York City TV. So, Jennifer, welcome to the Ivory Tower Boiler Room.
Hi, Andrew. Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, so first, I have to mention that Citadel Press has an ivory tower in their
Oh,
logo.
really?
So I feel like it's, you know, clandestine that you would be here.
Oh, yes,
So,
yes, absolutely. It's a match made in heaven for sure.
so how did of course I have so much I want to talk about with Hitchcock, but I'm just curious, as your debut book, how did this come to be? Like, how did you know this is the subject material you wanted for your first book?
Well, as you mentioned, I have a journalism background. So I actually started out in television and radio, and then I eventually made my way over to print.
Mm,
And I always stayed within the entertainment, arts and entertainment vein. I think that was always my interest. Just growing up, that was always what I gravitated towards. And my dad had basically, when I was a child, he had kind of raised me on this diet of MGM musicals, with
mm.
Judy Garland, and like he had me watching Some Like It Hot and the 39 Steps when I was just super young. So I think it was in my blood. And
Mm,
then I think just with that entertainment background, like getting to do some of that red carpet work, talk to some, Hollywood legends from like Liza Minnelli,
wow.
Marion Seldes, people from that era. I think I was inspired to do something in the classic movie vein. And then I think going towards Hitchcock and Rear Window. Rear Window was always my favorite Hitchcock film, and I noticed in the book market there had been a lot of making of film books, like not just a biography, but like a biography just of a specific film.
Mm,
And I saw they had done one for, I mean, I was really a fan of them, a reader of them. There was one that was done. I remember the first one I read was on Breakfast at Tiffany's by Sam Wasson,
oh,
Fifth
wow.
Avenue 5 a.m. And I'd seen that there was a book on Vertigo, and there as far as Hitchcock films. And I don't know, I think as a reader, I was looking, because Rear Window was one of my favorites, I was looking to read a book that was a little bit, more story driven or sort of a narrative based. Couldn't really find one. So I just thought, I'm a writer. I guess maybe I'll be up to the job. I don't know.
Well, no, it's so fascinating too that you mention like these red carpet interviews you were doing. And like, I'm curious, did you get starstruck or like, how did you break through that, ability to just try to have a genuine question connection? Because I feel like that's really tough on a red carpet because I have friends who do red
Yeah.
carpet interviews for Broadway and
Hmm.
also Hollywood, and it's such a pressure cooker kind of environment. Like I love this where we get to dig deep into the
Yes.
conversation and you really can't dig deep. It's like, right, like how many minutes do you get with the high
Yeah.
profile figure?
It depends on the situation. It depends on where you are. Because sometimes with the ones I did up for Broadway, there was the red carpet, but then there was also the backstage or like the after party where
Mm,
they would allow media to come in, and then you could dig a little deeper when you were talking then. Because I think, like say the actor or actress had already done their performance, and maybe their press agent wasn't, rushing them along anymore. But like I think yeah, exactly, when you're on the red carpet, I think I can't remember who it was, which celebrity it was. It was someone really A-list, but I remember their press agent saying like you get three questions. That's
wow.
it. So I was like, "Oh my gosh, like what what am I going to ask this person, So yeah, you have to, I guess, think on your feet when you're in those types of situations.
Do you feel like the celebrities really enjoy those press moments, or does a lot of it feel like a contractual obligation is being met?
I think the younger, or maybe the celebrities who are newer to the business, I think it's still a bit of a novelty. And then of course, as if you've been doing it for like 30 years or something, and then you probably just come up with this. I mean, I would anyway, like I would probably just come up with sort of a canned response that I'd give to everyone along the line. But
Mm,
yeah, you can tell or sometimes if someone's just not in the mood to do it, or and they have to put on a happy face, or I guess it just depends on the person
yeah,
if they
everyone
like
has
doing
a
it.
bad day. We all have bad days.
Exactly,
Unfortunately,
exactly.
celebrities are under a certain microscope, so their bad days are highlighted.
I can't imagine how difficult that would be. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, you'd have to
but
have a very specific personality for that.
yeah, and I'm a huge Broadway fan, so I have to know, like, what were some of the musicals or plays that you covered?
Let me think. I remember I did the Tony Awards a few
Oh,
years in a
okay.
row. I did when there was Shrek the musical, because I
Mhm.
remember Cameron Diaz coming to that and talking to her. Um, what else was there? When Liza Minnelli did a one-woman show, I
Hmm.
remember I spoke with her then.
What was she like,
Yeah,
Liza Minnelli?
she was really sweet. Yeah,
Yeah.
she was really nice. Yeah, because I remember it was a bit of a panicked situation because we were backstage, and the rule was that you had to talk to her press agent first before, like you couldn't just come up to her and address her. And her press agent was nowhere to be found, and we were getting down to crunch time. So my producer turned to me and he said, "You're just gonna have to approach her yourself." So I had to just, I didn't have any time to get nervous, so I kind of just, "Excuse me, Miss Minnelli," and then she turned around. She was so sweet and really
Oh,
kind, and she gave a really nice interview. So, yeah, I was
yeah.
lucky.
No, that's nice because I feel like the majority are definitely very thankful. My friend, he had this negative experience with Tony Danza that we don't have to get into, but
Oh
it was
yeah.
like this clip went viral and he like was, saying to my friend, "Oh, you should come up with better questions." But it was like something about, something silly of I think it was for New York, New York, that show that came out a few years ago. And he
Oh,
was
okay.
saying, oh, are, you more of a bagel or a pizza person? Or I don't know. It was something about making like lighthearted
Yeah, yeah.
questions. And like Tony Danza wanted, I guess, meteor questions. Who knows? But
Like about his acting technique or
yeah, he
something.
wanted
I
like a
don't know.
method question, I guess. Like
Yeah.
if he trained in the actor's studio. But um, but going with this Hollywood, the golden age, I find it so fascinating what you lay out in your introduction to your book, Jennifer, which really is like the way that the Hollywood production system it has completely shifted. Like when we're talking about the 1950s, like can you kind of bring us in, Jennifer? Like what was it like to be a Grace Kelly or a,
Mhm.
Jimmy Stewart in this
It
Hollywood
was
system?
it was very different. Yeah, the studio system back in the day. I mean, that's how Hollywood began, especially, and then going from the silent era into sound, it was like very solidified that, this studio system is how things are going to be from here on out.
Mm,
And it was very much, it was like, you were contractually obligated to a studio. If you wanted to work with another studio, you had to be loaned out. There was, had to be money exchange. So there was no freelancing going on, nothing Wild West the way it became later on.
mm.
And it was very much like, if you were an actor or an actress, you normally would probably work about 6 days a week and you get Sunday off. And you'd work pretty hard. And once one film ended, say if you were at Paramount or somewhere, you would probably just cross over to the other side of the sound stage or the lot, and then you'd just be on to the next picture.
Wow.
So it was very very different. And also there, I mean, I think it's common knowledge too that like the images of actors and actresses were a lot more tightly controlled, than they would be now. So nobody, if anyone had any sort of issues, nobody really was aware of it. The PR people made sure of that.
Yeah,
So
like a Rock Hudson, his sexuality is kept tightly controlled.
yeah,
Like they're,
unfortunately, yeah.
yeah. Well, and
Yeah,
we're
that these
dealing
things had to happen back then, yeah.
Yeah, and like I recently rewatched, well, we'll get into Rear Window. It's actually the first time I watched Rear Window in full. So this was for
Oh.
you, Jennifer, because, you know, I'm a Vertigo Hitchcock person, but I like, you know what it
Oh,
is? I think I figured it out. I like the Vertigo doubling, and it's very Edgar Allan Poe like. It's very
yes.
gothic, and I'm
Very
into,
gothic.
yes, and I like that style.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I'm also into the birds because I like the attacking of the birds. They're going
Yeah.
after Tippi Hedren. Is that the main
Tippi
character?
Hedren. Yeah. Oh my gosh, poor Tippi Hedren
I
with the
know, I
experience
know.
that she even had filming it.
Oh, did she? What happened?
Well, I know that at one point they had to use real birds, or the scene where at the close to the end. Don't want to give anything away,
Yeah.
but she goes into a room and she walks up the stairs with the flashlight. She goes into a room and then she's attacked and by the birds, and they had to start using real ones because they were having technical problems with some of the mechanical birds, and then
Oh,
so she ended up getting scratched up and kind of I think I don't know if it was like serious injuries. I can't say too much about the bird, speak too much to the birds. I'm sure there's an expert out there who can, but I know that she did suffer a few injuries from that. Obviously everyone probably also knows that her and Hitchcock didn't have the greatest
Mm,
relationship either. So yeah, there was that as well.
wow.
So
Yeah, but it's so interesting because like Tippi Hedren, definitely we'll get into Grace Kelly, but
mhm.
I was rewatching Sunset Boulevard and I love that film so much.
Yeah, William Holden.
Yes. And I love just what Gloria Swanson
Yeah.
does, like this meta narrative. And like she was a huge silent film star. And then like now she's actually speaking. And it's just the way like she's critiquing or part of this critique of what happens to the silent film star is just, I think it's just fascinating. And I could just
Yeah.
watch it over and over again. And that scene where
Yeah.
she's like playing cards with actual silent film
With the
stars.
actual film stars from that era. Yeah, it's like Billy Wilder, he was just a genius. Like
He
in
was.
anything he did, like whether it was romance or whether it was more cautionary tale like this and something a little more gothic like this, like Sunset Boulevard, he just always nails it.
Well, these film noirs are so fascinating because
Mhm.
like you bring so much light and scholarly understanding to the Hays Code, which if you could get into that,
Oh,
like
sure, yeah.
they're still able to subvert or have this really twisted slash edgy kind of narrative without it actually violating the Hays Code, which is not easy to do. And I think, if you want to explain, Jennifer, like what was the Hays Code and why did these like Hitchcock, why did he have to be so careful about the content in his films? The spring season is here, which means there's a new issue of the Gay and Lesbian Review called Victorian Times, all about my favorite period of literature, the 19th century. And you'll see a rugged Walt Whitman on the cover and the dandy Oscar Wilde. Well, guess what? My first article is now published in the Gay and Lesbian Review called Once Upon a Time in Camden. It's the intro to my book, which looks into their queer literary relationship, but also Whitman and Wilde's homoerotic poetics, and specifically what Whitman does with male same sex desire before the category of homosexuality even existed. Like, how did he even express this in his poetry? Well, you'll have to read my book to find out. Book coming soon. If you know of a publisher, let me know. I'm shopping around right now. But this Victorian issue is so special with the Gay and Lesbian Review. There's articles on Dr. Jekyll and Victor Frankenstein. I'm about to see The Bride, which I can't wait to see. And right, Guillermo del Toro's new Frankenstein is all the rage. There's an article on Monte Cristo's Women in Love, Tchaikovsky's Men. I love Tchaikovsky's ballet. I'm particularly an admirer of the Sleeping Beauty, one on Captain Cobb. There's film and TV shows reviewed like Heated Rivalry, Boots, Kiss of the Spider Woman, which, if you don't know, I had an episode with Jeremy Fox from the Gay and Lesbian Review, the managing editor, and Colin Carmen and Joseph Federico, and we talked all about Heated Rivalry. You have to listen to it. And Kiss of the Spider Woman, I keep recommending to everyone. It is an astounding film. Boots, I actually had the creator Greg Cope White on the podcast too. You'll have to listen to his interview. Also, if you haven't heard our episode on the kink issue of the magazine, it's really, really interesting. And the ethnography one. And yes, there will be an episode soon about the Victorian issue. So get your hands on the Gay and Lesbian Review. The digital subscription is really easy to get, glreview.org. The print subscription also, head on over to the website, click subscribe, use the promo code ITBR choice. You get a free issue of the magazine. Choose the Victorian issue, will you? So head to their Instagram, their TikTok. I love the Gay and Lesbian Review. I get so many book recommendations, TV show, film recommendations. One of the films that I can't wait to watch is in this issue. I want to say it's pronounced Pillion or Pillion. I think I made it French there, with Alexander Skarsgård. So enjoy your reading, everyone. And if you're reading the Gay and Lesbian Review, please reach out to me. I want to let them know, that you all listening to this podcast are reading their magazine. Now that the spring semester is here, I am so excited to let you all know about a publisher, an independent publisher that's celebrating 40 years of great books called Broadview Press. I love Broadview Press. I have so many of their editions of classic literature like Wuthering Heights, which is coming out soon, and it's our book club choice. And they have so many academic books for instructors and for students and the general public. So I've had so many exciting guests on, from guests talking about The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, guests talking about vampire literature, horror literature. I'm looking at you, Jeffrey Andrew Weinstock, whose book actually just came out called Horror Theory. Look it up. And I cannot wait because I have two exciting guests coming on soon. And I've recorded their episode, so I know that it's going to be such an interesting conversation. The first is Rachel Tukolsky, who wrote a book called Writing on Fire, a fierce yet friendly guide to writing humanities essays in college. I've used excerpts of it for my Writing 2 course at Montclair. It has gone over so well. I just love what Rachel does. And we get into this in our episode about this metaphor about writing on fire, like how that's a great way to think about free flowing, brainstorming, creative ideas, and getting into that flow state, which, as Rachel explains, happens not just in writing, but in many other avenues. And then the other guest that I have on is David Starkey, who wrote a book called Academic Writing Now, a brief guide for busy students. It is designed to cover the basics of a college writing course in a concise, student-friendly format. Each chapter concentrates on a crucial element of composing an academic essay and is capable of being read in a single sitting, which, for a generation, myself included, I think all of us now, just consumed by digital media or just this attention grabbing technology, reading in a single sitting is definitely a plus. So head to Broadview Press, use the promo code Ivory Tower, and you'll get 20% off every single book in their collection. There's also a really cool digital library collection they have. So if you're a librarian, take a look at that. Message me. If you're a librarian, I'd be happy to show you what that new collection looks like. And I hope you all enjoy your reading.
Yeah, absolutely. So beginning in 1934, this is when the Hays Code, or also known as the Production Code, was introduced, and it was partially done by a man named Joseph Breen, and also like he worked with the Catholic Church actually to put this code together of all the things that must not basically not appear in a film. If it's and it needed to pass this code in order to freely play at all film theaters, at least within the United States. And so if you did not pass the Hays Code at a certain point, if you didn't pass it, then that wasn't good for your film, because then that would mean a lot less people would see it. So when this was brought in, it was basically what this list said. It was, I mean, you can guess the things that it was saying, no to, but it was no gratuitous violence, no blatant sexuality, no homosexuality, no prostitution, no, like the list goes on. And it kind of just, I'm sure for some filmmakers back then, it was really just, a blow to them, because they were just like, okay, so I can't be creative. Like, what am I supposed to do here?
Mm.
And I think these filmmakers, specifically Hitchcock, and also Billy Wilder, who we were just talking about, they found really creative ways to still get their point across, but work their way around that code by using symbolism, by using subtlety with dialogue, by using all kinds of things. So like with Rear Window, for instance, um, there was a lot of usage of dialogue that where a lot of things were implied, like that Grace Kelly, she was obviously had been spending the night at Jeffrey's apartment. They were in a relationship, outside of marriage and in doing
Mm,
this. And because the Hays Code at that point was, kind of saying, you have to be married or must end in marriage, or, people must be punished if they do anything wrong, and all kinds of stuff that are kind of maybe story killers today,
mhm,
especially. And there were things like, Miss Torso, him watching her across the way, across the courtyard. And
mhm,
then, of course, the murder that actually happens where Thorwald kills his wife. And the way that he kills her, it was obviously quite gory. So he had to put all of this across so that it would go over the censors' heads, but then the core of the film would still stay intact. And that's just, it's not an easy thing to do, you
Yeah, well,
know?
it's so interesting. Like, I love the opening. If we can start with just the main title sequence slash overture that, like, I always love with a classic film. I mean,
Yeah.
it's Franz Waxman, right? Is that the composer?
Composer, yes, yeah.
Who also did Sunset Boulevard, I
He
think.
did, yeah,
He's an
yeah.
incredible composer.
He was
Um,
incredible, yeah. I interviewed his son,
oh,
and
really?
yeah, his son is named John Waxman, and yeah, he was talking a lot about, he actually was the only living person that I interviewed for this book who had actually been on the Rear Window set,
Wow.
because so many, obviously, so many people who worked on this are not with us any longer. So he, remembers it so vividly, walking around the
Mhm.
set and saying it was so massive, so much bigger in real life than it even appeared
Yeah.
on the film.
That's what I was
But
wondering, Jennifer. Like, it seems like it was pretty rare in the 50s or before even the 50s to actually be on location. Like, they weren't like, oh, let's go to
yeah,
Manhattan and try to, or, I mean, where is Rear Window supposed to take place?
it's supposed to take place in Greenwich Village, so, like in the West Village.
Okay.
Um, so it's basically so it's actually modeled, so that set is modeled after a real set, or sorry, a real building that is still standing on Christopher Street today. That's
Oh,
pretty
okay.
fairly close to the one train, the Christopher Street train. And it's still there. That courtyard is still there. You can,
Wow.
I don't know, I mean, I'm not sure how easy it is to get through there. I've walked past it before, but I've never, done too much investigating.
Mhm.
But it's definitely, yes, it's really amazing that like this set sort of was really what the film revolved around.
Is there a reason why they weren't really filming on location?
They weren't filming on location because, and Hitchcock really kind of, I think he realized this from the very beginning that he wouldn't have the synchronized because a lot of the scenes are it's very synchronized where a lot of things are happening, one after another as the camera is sort of panning the different neighbors. And
Hmm. Hmm.
there's a lot of there you could really see what's going on inside people's apartments. It's all very, he did that for a reason. And with the lighting too, there's daytime, there's evening, there's nighttime with the lighting. It's very specific. He did that for a reason so that he could have full control over his environment.
Mm.
And the only way for him to do that was on a set, and to just have his crew go to Greenwich Village and, take, model it exactly after a building there, exactly after the businesses that are surrounding that building. Like the police, the sixth precinct is across the street
Yeah.
from that building, and it was in real life too. And even, just having all the references to things like the 21 Club,
Mm.
and things like that just make it so New York, so
Mm.
Manhattan. And but he knew that he couldn't, I mean, if you try to, I guess, imagine that film being made in a real location back in those days. I just don't think there would have been a way, lighting wise and control wise, like where we would have gotten the same effect and really fully understood what was going on.
No, thank you for that. And I think it works so well because now knowing that it's actually based off of a real location in Greenwich Village, I mean, I don't know if anyone else talks about this, Jennifer, but I feel like Hitchcock, it feels so theatrical, like I'm actually watching a play. Like I really feel like it has such a
Yeah.
dramatic element. Like with the set, I feel like this fictional, like based off real life, but like the fictional set allows it to feel like you're on Broadway or something. Like it has a real
Yeah,
quality to it. Like I'm not
it
sure
does.
if that's the
Yeah.
intention, but
It, yeah,
it
it
yeah.
yeah, no, sorry. I was just gonna
No,
say,
go ahead.
it has like this animated quality to it. It's almost like, yeah, like it's almost cartoonish. And
Yes.
but if you're watching it from the very beginning to the very end, I think what he did, Hitchcock was very smart in that he kept everything limited to that location. So it was a one set film.
Mm,
I think if he had filmed a scene outside, or maybe as an introduction or something, and then brought it to, this set, with this building, it would have felt really jarring
mm.
and a little strange. But just the fact that from beginning to end, it takes place on this set, it just makes it feel like reality. Like it's like just this, your own little reality you're watching of this one set.
Well, like you phrase it, it's like this that isolation of like just being, you know, with like seeing just the way that Jimmy Stewart has to try to portray this type of almost paranoia meets, well, of course, voyeurism, but
Yeah.
it's this just like this intensity of you just constantly get his POV. And like, yeah, you're watching a woman doing her dance, like her exercises. You're seeing a bra being taken off, which I thought was probably the most risque. I'm like, wait, did she just take her bra off?
Yeah, and so actually a funny story about Miss Torso taking her bra off. Like, so she actually, they had a scene that was even more seductive than that, where she was like lying, I think it was that she was lying topless on her stomach.
Oh,
And so that's even a little tiny bit more risque. And he specifically put that shot in to
mm.
distract the censors from what he wanted to protect in the film, so that
Oh,
they would immediately just look at that and be like, nope, that's got to go. And he was like, yeah, I don't care, didn't want to keep it anyway. Like he specifically did it so that he could just protect that core of the film, protect
mm,
that, make sure they weren't reading into any of the dialogue, make sure, they weren't reading into any of the symbolism that was going on.
mm,
So I think that was something that a lot of directors did. It was common thing practice in those days
mm.
to do. It's very clever.
That's so smart. So smart.
Yeah.
Well, so when it comes to this film, like what did you find was with viewers, like why do you think it has taken on such an inspirational legacy? I mean, we wouldn't have so many films without Rear Window, like a lot of Hitchcock, right? But we wouldn't
Yeah.
have, well, the Disturbia, which is basically a modern day remake. Like Girl on the Train, Woman in the Window,
Yeah.
even Gone Girl to a sense. Like I feel like
Hmm.
voyeurism and murder go hand in hand now in psychological suspense. So like
Yeah.
what is it? Is it like the way that we're brought into, LB Jeffries' world? Is that like what you think has kept it lasting is just this intensity?
Well, I think it's a few things. I think, first of all, like from a technical aspect, I think it was that he was a pioneer of so many things like that don't even register as Hitchcockian anymore, because they're so used now. like withholding information from the audience, not telling them the full story, not showing them what's really going on, only showing them partially what's going on, and then them using their imaginations to try and figure that out. Different types of cuts and things like that. Or when Thorwald is looking out his window, he looks to the left and right, and then he finally looks right at Jimmy Stewart. But as an audience member, you feel like he's looking right at you and he's about to come for you. These types of technical things. I think that's a big part of it. But I think another possibly equally, big part, if not bigger, is maybe just the human aspect of it. The fact that we, on a universal level, we can all relate to a lot of the feelings and a lot of the human experiences that we're seeing in this film that haven't changed since 1954. Like, seeing somebody like Miss Lonely Hearts and just how just sad and isolated she is in her life. Who hasn't felt like that at some time in their life. And just seeing just the feelings of isolation that even LB Jeffries is going through, the cabin fever and the paranoia. The paranoia was a big thing then, because they had just come out of the McCarthy era with the whole communist witch hunt, which was especially going on in Hollywood. But after that, there was the Cold War, and then even in recent days, there's still things going on. That to do with paranoia, to do with fear of surveillance and of being watched. And then, of course, there's a flip side of it. It's the loving to watch people when they don't know it. If you see somebody across your courtyard, and if you're human, I mean, you're gonna see what they're doing. It's just it's just a human thing to do. So,
well, and there's like a whole debate for those who live like in a dense city like Manhattan, like where some say, well, if someone's window's open, then they're like begging you to watch them. Like there's, or someone's like, I'm allowed to like have my, blinds up and like be exposed, and if I'm naked, then so be it, that's my like right. And I'm like, oh, I don't, it was like there's like so many debates about voyeuristic exhibitionism.
Exactly. Yeah. Like some people might say, I guess Miss Torso in Rear Window. Some people might, or Lisa was kind of like, always shutting the blinds whenever, Jeffries was sticking his head out looking at Miss Torso dancing. So it was like, like, I don't know, you could say she was maybe being a bit of an exhibitionist, or maybe some people would say she wasn't, and she's, that's her home and she's free to do what she wants. So I guess there's two sides to it, maybe.
Well, and it's also so interesting because I was like thinking he has a woman like Grace Kelly, and he's obsessed with Miss Torso. Like his, girlfriend is right there, and she's being embodied by Grace Kelly. You would think that he's content, but for some reason, like, what is that like tension there? Because it does really seem important the way that Lisa, like, she has a career. Like, she is, the epitome of physical femininity with Grace Kelly, but like, she also does have an intellect and a career. Like, why?
She's the whole package.
She's the whole package. Like, why is that not enough for LB Jeffries?
Welcome to Severed, a podcast week dropping new episodes every Monday. Severed True Crime and Severed Paranormal episodes deep dive into murder, mysteries, and the otherworldly in a concise format. A 7-minute story to frame the case with thoughtful analysis and our usual banter.
We sometimes find the lighter side of darker cases. We offer 3 spin-off shows, Severed Strange Stories, Severed Haunted You, and Severed Serial Killers that highlight the unusual to lighthearted topics from the digital dumpsters of true crime, haunted universities, and the minds of madness like Ted Bundy and Jeffrey Dahmer.
We are your co-hosts. I'm Harry Chambers.
And I'm Drew Hudson. Listen on all major podcast platforms, including Rogue Media Network and Radio Garden State. Follow us on Instagram at severed_podcast.
Are you a fan of classic Hollywood movies?
Are you a fan of queer cinema?
Then do we have the podcast for you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Christian Garcia.
And I'm Luke Del Mar.
And we are your hosts of That Old Gay Classic Cinema, where we take a look at some of the greatest films of all time and analyze them through a queer theoretical lens.
Let's be honest. LGBTQIA+ people have been a part of Hollywood since its inception, and this podcast celebrates those artists and entertainers of yesteryear while also taking a closer look at the queer-coded characters and stories in classic Hollywood films long before queer representation entered the mainstream.
So follow us down the road of classic cinema as we give you a guide to some of the films that touched our hearts, brains, and even gave us courage to be ourselves.
You can listen to That Old Gay Classic Cinema wherever you get your podcasts, and be sure to follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok.
All right, listeners, we're ready for our close-up.
Well, he was a bit of a curmudgeon, just one of those guys. That's how he started out in the movie anyway. He almost seemed like someone who had a bit of a chip on his shoulder, maybe had a bit of a tainted past. It was never really brought up, his past, except for the fact that we know that he was in the war. He had come from the war several years earlier, and that's how he knew the detective who came over to investigate. But other than that, we don't know too much about him, but it would be my thought if I met him that he, when he was in that state anyway, that he was a guy who had some sort of chip on his shoulder about relationships or to do with commitment and, here's this beautiful woman who's completely in love with him. And, he's kind of just saying, let's just keep things as status quo. And like, he wants to keep seeing her, but he doesn't want to, invest too much. And I mean, even his nurse, Stella, played by Thelma Ritter. She's the voice of reason there saying, what is wrong with you, man?
Yeah.
So
exactly.
I think by the end, he finally comes around and realizes, okay, wait a minute, this woman is amazing. And what am I doing? And when there's a risk of losing her.
Well, and I wanted to ask, what was the relationship with, I say Jimmy Stewart, but James Stewart? I mean, I don't know. Did he go by Jimmy or James or?
Well, I think both is, yeah.
But I guess Hitchcock would say Jimmy. I don't.
Yeah.
Like to also have him in Vertigo, like what was his, he must have had a really tight relationship with Hitchcock, I'm assuming, to be in 2. Was he in 2 or more Hitchcock films?
Oh, he was in 4.
4.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So he started out in Rope. That was the first time himself and Hitchcock did a movie together. Also a one-set film. So it was not the first time that he had done a one-set film with Hitchcock. And Rope was like a very experimental film because they were doing scenes in 10-minute takes. So they were doing it like it was a play, and the actors were getting very stressed out by it. But of course, Rope in hindsight now is a classic, and people love it now. But then after he did Rope, that was in 1948. Him and Hitchcock got on really well, and I remember he told a reporter, he said, yeah, the movie was Rope, it was an experiment, but he said, I'll go on the record and say that I'll do a movie with Hitchcock any day. So it was definitely, it was more than likely they would work together again. So he came on to Rear Window. At first, I think he was very hesitant because he had done the one set film with Hitchcock before, and it had been a little bit stressful on everyone. And this, I mean, this was very different, though. This was a massive, much bigger set, a much bigger production, and it wasn't being filmed like a play. It was being,
Mm.
filmed like a motion picture usually is. And yeah, I mean, they had a fantastic. I spoke with Jimmy Stewart's daughter, Kelly Stewart Harcourt, and she said that they had a fantastic professional relationship because they worked in similar ways.
Mm.
In a lot of ways. I mean, Hitchcock was not known to give a ton of feedback to actors. So sometimes if method actors came up to him and asked questions, it didn't always jive that well. But Jimmy Stewart was a little more like, I think he kind of liked to sort of go and figure things out on his own. He was very much a journeyman actor and saw it as a very, he just treated it like a job, like a very serious craft. And he didn't really take his job home with him, when he
Mm.
came home from the studio. He's that type. And I think him and Hitchcock, they just meshed well professionally.
Yeah.
And so then after that, they made Rear Window, The Man Who Knew Too Much, and Vertigo after
Mm.
that. So,
Wow. And it's so interesting because like with your interviews, and I love like you're talking about who out of the cast, like their um family, like you talked to, and it seemed like you said Grace Kelly. It was really hard to cast Lisa. Like why why was Grace Kelly like a later addition to the cast? Like with specifically
well,
figuring out who Lisa would be.
Well, so with Lisa, I think he knew that he wanted Grace Kelly after he worked on Dial M for Murder with her, and
Mm.
he was a big fan of her. I think after that because he just loved her subtlety, he loved her restraint as an actress, and he felt that she had the presence and technique of an actress well beyond her years, and I think he knew he wanted her for Rear Window, but when he made the offer, she was simultaneously offered on the waterfront
Mm.
by Elia Kazan and to star opposite Marlon Brando, and I think it threw her for a loop because she wasn't sure which one she should go with because she was so early in her career, and I think she had to think about it, and it took a while until she realized, I know Hitchcock, I've worked with him, I know we work well together. Lisa Fremont, this character, this is it was clearly it must have been a character who really resonated with her because she had a similar upbringing to Lisa. She grew up in Philadelphia with a really like a well-known family, and her dad was they're very wealthy, and just with that same sort of upbringing, and she was a mover and a shaker in New York the way Lisa was, so it was like I think it made more sense to her to go with the director she was familiar with and to play a character who she felt she had a connection to, whereas I think with On the Waterfront it was a little heavier subject matter. It was about social issues, and she was playing, or she would have been playing, a character who had just was in mourning and had just lost her brother, and I think and they were filming around kind of parts of Brooklyn and areas that she wasn't familiar with, so I think yeah, in the end she went with like what felt good,
Yeah, well,
what worked for her.
she went with her gut, which was smart. And
Yeah.
I've actually, because my dad's family lives near where she grew up, and actually my dad's mom grew up like
Oh,
in the town, like right next to her. And my
oh, East Falls.
East Falls, yeah. Like my
Yeah.
nana grew up in a place called West Oak Lane, which is like right near there. And my aunt
Oh,
went to the college that's like down the street from Grace Kelly's house. And I like was in
yeah.
that area and I like stopped my car. And it's like a very busy area. So it's not like
Yeah.
the easiest. So I'm not sure if you've ever been, but it is like you can like still see the original house she grew up in. And
On Henry Street. Yeah, I heard that her son, Prince Albert, bought the house.
I think
And
so. Hmm.
yeah, yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
It's so
and
nice.
I think that it's so the lore is so strong still. Like people still love to claim Grace Kelly, just like they were like, the Philly girl who made it into,
What an icon.
made it into a film star and then became a princess. Uh, so I agree though, that subtlety she gives in this performance is so captivating because it's like she has to put up with a type of misogyny. Like the
Hmm.
language that he uses towards her really grated my nerves. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
of just the way that, men would talk to their girlfriends at that time or wives, even
yeah,
like, sweetie, like it just is so demeaning. And,
yeah.
but at the same time, she still is able to convey her points, but also
Hmm.
like demands that she be taken seriously. But then there's also
Absolutely.
like the moments where she said she would go on adventures with him and my fiance was watching with me and he's like she's in a ball gown and she said she's going to go like do all these adventures. But then she's scaling like the wall of the apartment across the way. And it's like what is she doing?
Yeah,
Like
in a dress and heels.
yeah,
Yeah,
so she definitely is a complicated character.
she
she's
is.
not one dimensional, which I think is what makes
Yeah,
it so fascinating. Um,
yeah.
yeah, is she like, do you know anything about like why Grace Kelly was really drawn to these psychological suspense type films?
I think part of it was her and Hitchcock got along really well. I think they
Mm,
worked really well together. And so I think when they did, and then I think Hitchcock, when he back in the 50s, he chooses you to be his Hitchcock blonde, you kind of don't really say no. I
yeah.
think maybe at that time too. So I think, it was, there was a lot that I think she would have been drawn to. There was a lot of richness.
Mm,
And I think if she hadn't, you know, I think that like a lot of the films also, the characters that he has her play, as you said, they show her to be a complicated character. I think she did like another film right after that, To Catch a Thief. And it was
mm,
John Michael Hayes, the same screenwriter as Rear Window, and it was again playing another complex character, like another woman who is rebellious, but maybe in a different way. So
mm.
I think that, I think she was drawn to, yeah, I guess who wouldn't be drawn to that kind of richness in a character? Because I think, and especially at that point in time, there were a lot of great women's movies, but there were also a lot of movies where, the woman is kind of more just playing the passive arm candy, and which she could have been, that could have been her fate if, she hadn't gotten, if there weren't certain opportunities, or if, if she had chosen a different way. So,
Yeah.
I think that, yeah, it really, with Hitchcock, her doing those films with Hitchcock, she really got to show her acting chops a little bit more. And
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's fascinating too to think about, you know, Marilyn Monroe is starring in films. And
Mm.
like, I was always curious if Marilyn Monroe and Grace Kelly ever had conversations together or like a friendship. Cause I never really found like them linking up, but did they
Yeah.
ever did they run in the same circle?
I don't think they did because I could never find any photos of them together. And I think another point is that Grace Kelly was in Hollywood such a short time
Mm,
that maybe perhaps they never had the opportunity. If Grace Kelly had not, gotten married Prince Renier and moved to Monaco and just a couple years after Rear Window, they probably would have, maybe they would have gotten to know each other, or they would have met. I mean, I know I was also curious about if she'd ever known Audrey Hepburn, because they had such similar kind of images. Whereas I think, like Audrey Hepburn was about European elegance, and then Grace Kelly was about the all-American elegance. And there's like one photo of them meeting and talking backstage at the Oscars,
Mm.
when they were both presenting, and they're just saying hi and chatting for a minute. But I'm sure they were so busy back then, a lot of these actresses, it probably didn't have a chance to to get to know each
Yeah,
other, where
yeah.
you're like, but then when you're watching them, you see a lot of similarities and dynamics and stuff. Like you feel like, oh, that would have been nice if they had met, or
I
been
know, like, could
friends,
you
or
imagine Grace Kelly and Marilyn if they were co-starring opposite each other in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes?
yeah. I feel like that could have worked, because I mean, Lauren Bacall starred opposite her, and it was Betty Grable too, in our, oh, sorry, not Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. I was thinking of How to Marry a Millionaire.
Oh,
Sorry, no,
okay.
sorry, I got my Marilyn Monroe references mixed up.
Yeah,
No,
but
yeah, that would have been interesting. Yeah.
yeah, well, and I also think like a good point that you bring to bear in this Hollywood system is like there was no round table. Like there was no, the
Yeah.
actors are all going to give advice to each other or like talk about their experience. It was like the
Yeah.
studio owned you and they couldn't just talk to any reporter they wanted. Like unlike well, actually, I don't know. Is that still true, Jennifer? I think aren't there some actors who are bounded by contract, like not to reach out to certain podcasts or like they can't just like go on any program they want to? Like, is it still as strict or it depends on the
I
actor?
don't think it's, yeah, I think it depends on the actor. I don't think it's as strict now as it was. I mean, the studio system, it was like, yeah, you had a bunch, like a corporation of people, watching you a little bit more. Whereas I think now it's more like, I guess if somebody was going to interview an A-list, or, a celebrity, they would probably go through their agent or their PR person anyway. So I think like that, those people would maybe be in on the decision as well.
Mm,
So I think, yeah, but yeah, it's probably definitely a little more lax than it was.
yeah, for good. Definitely for good.
Yeah.
And that's not a Wicked pun there since the new Wicked is coming out. But
Oh, yes, I heard about that.
so something else I was so curious about is I think because Hitchcock has such a legacy that those listening might think or watching, right? If they're watching on YouTube, hi to everyone, is this was going against the mainstream. Like Hitchcock was not, like his films were not the popular films of the time. Like they weren't the stock films. I mean, they weren't the
They weren't winning
everyday films.
Oscars. Yeah,
Hmm.
they were not winning at the Oscars. Like he was nominated, but he never won an Oscar,
Wow.
except for at the end, like closer, way later on in his career, he was given a sort of this memorial award for just for his overall contribution to film, but he never won an Oscar for any single film.
Mm,
And that always seems strange, I think, because he's just such a, he's just, of all the filmmakers from that era, I'd say he's probably the most recognizable one. Um,
mm,
and so that's, yeah, that's odd as well. Like that, there was just, the Academy sort of had this idea of the types of films that they wanted to um, honor at that time. And I think with him, some people or maybe around the 50s saw him as more of an entertainer, as
yeah.
opposed, with suspense, as opposed to, a deep thinking artist. Whereas it turned out that when the French New Wave started to happen, and Francois Truffaut wrote a book about him, and did the interview with him where it was this really famous Hitchcock Truffaut book came out. I think that idea changed, and people really started to realize what a true artist he really was. But I think there
Well,
was definitely a point where, yeah, no, people, yeah, had a different opinion.
well, isn't that the sad truth that so many innovators in the creative world aren't appreciated until they're dead?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Van Gogh, like the list could go on forever.
Authors, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so Hitchcock's Blondes. I did have Lawrence Leamer on the podcast before to talk about Capote's Women, but
Oh yeah.
I'm sure you know about his Hitchcock book. And like Lawrence Leamer looks into all the women in Hitchcock. And
Yeah.
there's
Mhm.
such a controversy, I think. Like, how do you weigh in, Jennifer, about yes, he's idolizing the blonde woman. Yes, there is such a hyper femininity, beauty standard. But also, like we talked about, these women are complicated. So it's not like they're airheads. Like, it's not like they're the arm candy. Like there is depth going on. But
Yeah.
why what's the thinking around the Hitchcock blonde? Like why was he so fascinated? What was going on there, do you think? If you could go into Hitchcock's brain, which I don't know if we want to be
Yeah.
there for a while, but what was happening?
I think, I mean, he's been asked that question before, and what's the thing? What is it with blondes? And he said, well, I always shoot against somber backgrounds because of, all of his suspense and the darkness and everything. And he said, blondes just film better against that background.
Hmm.
And I guess it makes sense, on a technical basis. And that is technically true, I'm sure. But then I think it's like, I'm sure he was just partial to blondes too. I'm sure he just liked them. I don't know.
Well, but that's where Vertigo, I think, is so interesting because you have,
Mhm.
not to give away a film from the 50s, but
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
I think it's fascinating when you have like James Stewart's character fall for this blonde bombshell who he thinks he's saving. And
Yeah.
then it's actually a woman who is brunette. Like it's like the
Yeah.
actual the authenticity is a brunette. Like there is definitely something happening with like in that film with the mirroring and like the disguise of like
Yeah.
the blonde woman deceiving and the deception. It's
Yeah.
fascinating. I think someone could like write a dissertation on the blonde deception in Hitchcock.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think, yeah. And I think it was Hitchcock was really, yeah, especially in with that film, I think he was really it seemed like he was projecting his own life, just
Mm,
his need for control sometimes, and, his need to for to make up a woman in a certain way, to have his Hitchcock blonde. And, Ingrid Bergman, he
yeah.
worked with her for a long time. She left, she went to Italy when she married Roberto Rossellini, and she was making films there. And then he found Grace Kelly. But no, she left. She went to Monaco to become princess. And then I think when he found Tippi Hedren, things got a little because he really had discovered her in a TV commercial, so she didn't have an acting career before that. So I
Mm,
think that's why things got a little dicey there, where I think it sounded like he had some real control issues with her there that were
mm.
bordering on harassment. It sounded like. So
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
we are talking about Hollywood here. So,
yeah. So
men and manipulation and control, unfortunately not
it's par for the
it's
course,
par for the
unfortunately.
course. So as I've loved this conversation. I can't believe how quick it's
Yeah,
going by.
me too.
It's just like I could keep talking and talking, and I'll have to. Hopefully, you have like another arts and culture work coming.
Yeah,
There's something we'll talk
yeah,
about. But
definitely, yeah.
so a film I also really want to see is Strangers on a Train.
Oh
And,
yeah.
you know, I love that it's a Patricia Highsmith novel. He also seemed to really love adapting literary works, which is, I think, maybe also
Yeah.
why he took on, after his death, this like psychoanalytic, literary, just analysis going on, because so much is based,
Yeah.
this is based off of a short story. Vertigo is
Yeah.
based off, I think, of a short story or a
The
novel.
birds as
The
well.
birds, everything is like based
Daphne
off.
du Maurier.
Exactly, exactly. So,
Hmm.
why do you think, or what was it about literature for Hitchcock did you find why he's turning to these sources?
Well, I think he's an intellectual. I think he liked to read. And I think, from a filmmaker's perspective, I think he probably, when he was able to read and, when you're reading fiction and, all your senses are working and, your imagination is going, and maybe it just helped him picture what the film would look like, and what maybe needed to change in order for it to become, to go to the silver screen, like
Mm,
with Rear Window, for instance. When it had to be murder, the short story that it was based on. In the original short story, there's like Hal Jeffries, but there is no Thelma Ritter. There's no, nurse, like female nurse, and there's definitely no romance. There's no Grace Kelly
mm,
in there. So I think he was able to take the story, really examine what he liked about it and what was grabbing him about it, and then combine it with some Hollywood magic that he knew
mm.
was needed to make it accessible on the screen to everyone.
Well, and that's what makes him an expert in his craft of
Mhm.
the psychological suspense. I mean, by far, even though, right, he might have this thing with the blondes or whatever's happening, but
Whatever is going on
whatever's
psychologically
going
there.
on
Yeah.
there, don't look there. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, obviously, the way he crafts his narratives are so spectacular. I mean, just incredible. And I guess with like one of my, maybe not final, but what subtext, or like when I think of Strangers on a Train, the reason I think of it is because of the like homoerotic desire, like the same-sex desire that kind of just, it's so implied, even though, right, it can't be stated because of the code. What kind of subtext did you like, I'm sure you've been sitting with Rear Window for so long now and been such a close reader of it. What have you discovered the more you keep watching this film that fascinates you?
Well, there was something that was said, because you were talking about subtext, and it made me think of something that it was, I believe it was Roger Ebert, who had said that he believed that Jimmy Stewart's cast in the film represented impotence,
Mm,
and that he was actually impotent, and then that's explains why does he not interested in the Grace Kelly. But I think, I mean, if he would have brought it up to Hitchcock never commented on it, of course. So if he would have brought it up to Hitchcock, he might have just said, no, that's not what I meant." But I mean, who knows? Like maybe that was something that maybe that some of the people who have said this, like maybe they're onto something, that like there was some sort of implied subtext that had to do with that. Like with LB Jeffries, maybe his character, it was more than just him being career obsessed and a little bit afraid of relationships. Like maybe there
mm.
was something else going on there with
You're
him that we
right.
that we weren't told.
No, you're
So
right. But even like if it's not impotence, it's a type of emasculation because he's not achieving like the dream of the patriarchy in a way. Like if Grace Kelly's there, he's definitely not acting on a sexual prowess. And then something I noticed watching for the first time is when he brings out that camera and like he puts it right on his crotch. And I'm like, wait, And it's just like this huge, like,
Tripod.
just tripod. And it is like, there definitely is like, there's a reason why Freud is brought in a lot with Hitchcock. And I'm just gonna
Yeah,
say
that's such a
something
good
there
point.
with like
Yeah.
phallic desire. I know that like, there's been a lot done with that, but yeah, Jimmy Stewart is really good at like just focusing and honing in on the like man who has isn't able to achieve and check off all the boxes of manhood. Like I feel like he does a very good
Yeah.
job with the flawed man.
He's really good at that. Yeah, he's really good at playing the everyday Joe,
Hmm.
like the ordinary man in extraordinary circumstances. I think that's
Yeah.
what he's really good at that. He's very different energy than Cary Grant, especially,
Yes.
the Cary Grant in Hitchcock movies. Cary Grant was like impossibly charming and completely unflappable and, always tanned and in like a perfectly cut suit. Whereas Jimmy Stewart played more, the guy that we sort of recognize, or like
Mm.
maybe we know someone like that character in our lives, or I guess he would be I mean he also played such a nice guy in a lot of roles too, like It's a Wonderful Life, so then I think he gets
Mhm.
these comparisons to Tom Hanks a
Mm.
lot too, but I think he could also play serious darkness too, like just that really flawed guy as
Uh,
well, that he did
abs-
so well, but then you still like him because he's
Absolutely.
Jimmy Stewart. He's just so, he's so familiar
He just has so much
presence.
charisma of
Yeah.
yeah, the guy next door.
Yeah.
Which, what are your thoughts on the remake of Rear Window, which I haven't seen, but I think it's with Christopher.
Christopher Reeve, yeah, and Daryl
Yeah.
Hannah. Yeah. It's nothing like the original. It's like
Mm,
they definitely took a big detour with it. I think it's one of those films that you will, if you watch it, you'll either really like it or just really dislike it, I think.
mm.
Um, it just depends on it, like if you I think Christopher Reeves, like he just gave it such a good performance. I think he carried the whole film really emotionally,
Oh wow.
and it's really, and it's nice too that he, this was his first role after that accident that he had, and this role suited him so well, and he just, yeah, he did such a great job. Um, but then at the same time, I think if you're looking for anything really Hitchcockian or like a real homage to the original Rear Window, you're not really going to find it there.
Mm. Well, speaking of homage, and my final question is this, which is, where do you think Hitchcock still survives in our culture? Like, what do you see around us now in 2025? And you're like, oh, that wouldn't be here without Hitchcock.
I think he's everywhere. I think
Mm.
he's in when I turn on Netflix and or Apple and I'm watching, some a thriller, like like there's so many, like even the ones that you named, like especially like the girl in the in the window, when in the window, and all these window, and girl on the train, and the list goes on of these types of things. But then also, even if you look back to the 90s, when at the time of erotic thrillers, when they
Mm.
had films like Basic Instinct, and like that film was, it doesn't, I mean, you wouldn't look at it, watch it, and think like, oh, that's so Hitchcockian, but you kind of would though, if you think on a basic level, like it's really about, that film was also about like what is being withheld, what information is being withheld from us
Mm.
viewers right now.
Mm.
And I mean, Hitchcock was a pioneer in that, so it's like his influence is so finely woven into our culture that's like that we almost, like it doesn't register anymore in a
That
sense.
makes
So but
so
he,
much
yeah,
sense,
but he was like
Jennifer.
really really a pioneer with so many ideas when it comes to suspense and
Yeah.
what really entertains us as people, and as humans, like what are we really curious about. Like I think he was curious about human nature
Mm.
And he was always probably observing people and seeing how they reacted to things, and what titillates people or what terrifies people. And
Mm.
I think that was what interested him, I'm sure, as a filmmaker.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you're definitely like having me rethink like when I see again some 90s films like Cruel Intentions or Fatal
Yeah.
Attraction, I think is 80s, which I saw for the first time too. And Fatal Attraction,
Oh, Fatal
wow, Glenn
Attraction, yeah.
Close's acting, it was so, so good. I'm
She's
like, she's
incredible.
so good. Oh,
She was so good in that.
yeah.
And she's
Yeah,
interesting because Glenn Close was saying that she really felt like the character Alex that she played was really misunderstood because she was just seen as this big psycho back then. But well, she was a woman who had mental health problems, like she needed help. So it's
exactly.
like, anyway, sorry, go on.
No, but you're right. You're right. And
Yeah.
well, maybe that could be your next. You could look
You
into
know,
Fatal Attraction or
I'd love to write about a book, or I'd love to write about a film like that.
yeah, or
So we'll see.
Wild Things. That's
Oh
fascinating.
yeah, that would be fascinating too. That's
Yeah.
a yeah, going on the 90s train. Yeah,
Yeah. Or I
I
saw
would
what
like
was
that.
Alicia Silverstone in where she's like not the babysitter, but it's the other one. I'm trying
The
to remember.
Crush?
The Crush. Oh my goodness. Woo!
Yes.
There's a lot of there's a lot going on in those 90s films that are
That really had a
disturbing.
moment. Those types of movies, like yeah, like the erotic thrillers, like they really had a moment
They
in
did.
the early or yeah, late 80s, early
Yeah.
90s kind of.
More cutting edge
Yeah.
than films that are coming out now, I feel. I mean,
Yeah,
I feel like the
when
TV shows have kind of gone in that direction. Like I just saw that TV show with Robin Wright, The Girlfriend.
oh, I watched that too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what did you think?
You know what? I totally picked up that early 90s erotic sort of thriller vibe, that and maybe it was also the fact that it was Robin Wright that was in it too, that made
Yeah.
it sort of deja vu as well. But yeah, yeah, I thought it was well done. I wasn't expecting to love it because I thought, like, oh, it might be, I don't know, like maybe a little cheesy or something. But I mean, I thought it was really well done. I thought it was really
Yeah.
entertaining.
I did too. That and Sirens.
Oh, Sirens, yes.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
just so many good
Julianne Moore.
the TV shows. I would say I feel like TV is where thriller has really done has made a lot of progress. And see, for
Yeah,
film, I think horror has done a real like horror is now really everywhere.
that is true.
Which
Yeah, and
can yeah,
horrors can be independent and they don't need that much money sometimes to be really effective and well done as
yeah,
well.
yeah. Well, and years from now we'll look back and think, oh, this all makes sense with the state of the world.
Yeah.
Why we're invested in these kinds of narratives. But
Yeah, makes sense.
Jennifer, where can everyone get their hands on such an incredible book? All things the making of Rear Window.
Oh, you can get it on Amazon. You can get it anywhere, Barnes and Noble, anywhere books are sold, really.
Good, good.
So
And
yeah.
where can everyone follow you too on social media?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'm mainly on Instagram, and my handle is Jen O'Callahan, just double N.
Nice, nice. Good. Well,
Yeah.
thank you, Jen. This was so fun. Oh, and of course, you can get her book via Audible, and I also saw it's on Spotify. So, you can listen to if you want to like go for a nighttime stroll. That could be that could be an interesting experience. I think Hitchcock would like that. So,
Yeah.
it is
Very timely for Halloween.
very
Yeah.
timely. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. A very good spooky season pick. Well, Jennifer, such a pleasure. And I can't wait to
Thank
have you back
you.
on. We're going to have to like think of something in a few months that'll just
I would love
get you
that.
back here. Such a good time.
Thank
Thank you, Jennifer.
thank you, Andrew.
Okay.